Really excited to have Julie here today. My name is Vlad, and I spent most of my career in startups, actually. Most recently, 10 years at Airbnb. And now I'm a partner at Index Ventures where I invest, and I also get the fortune of working with founders. And I'm really excited for Julie. She is the CEO and founder of Daydream. And before Daydream, Julie has started and has grown multiple e-commerce businesses in fashion specifically. She has launched the first version of Nordstrom.com. She also has grown Sephora, Stitch Fix, and she actually started a company called The Yes and sold it to Pinterest. And Daydream is her latest creation, and we were super lucky to actually co-lead the seed about a year ago in Daydream, and I've been working with Julie ever since, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being here. I know you're super, super busy. And today we don't have that much time, only about 20 minutes. We're going to try to jam-pack a lot of content into those 20 minutes. And we're going to talk about Daydream, we're going to talk about AI and how it's impacting shopping and consumer behavior. But first, I want to rewind and go all the way back to Julie growing up. I think we've chatted quite a bit about how your earliest experiences in Syracuse have shaped who you are, your career choices, and you also describe yourself as a mall rat. So tell us more.
I don't think that term still exists, but I really love it. I grew up in the 80s in a cold, boring place, and I got all my inspiration from 17 magazine, as we all did back then, and we would sort of read it voraciously as soon as it arrived, and then find the things that we were inspired by and excited and go hunt them all to find it. And so I sort of joke that I've been working on search ever since I was about 10 years old. But I knew every corner of the mall, and I knew when things would hit the stores, and it was way too long for my taste. But yes, I had a very early love of shopping.
Yeah, so that's what got you started. Mm-hmm. And one story that you've told me in the past, which really stood out to me, was the Starbucks story. Because when it just feels like when you want something and you want to achieve it, you just go for it and you make it happen. Can you just share the Starbucks story?
I think it's definitely a personality trait of all founders. But when we set our minds to something, we don't take no for an answer. But my boyfriend, who I had met in business school, was working in Seattle, and I was working in San Francisco. And I wanted to move up to Seattle. And I looked at sort of the companies that were there, and Starbucks was kind of the most interesting to me because I'd been told Nordstrom actually was, you had to worked on the shoe floor since you were 12, and so I didn't have an in there. Howard Schultz was speaking, the CEO of Starbucks was speaking at an event, and on like a Wednesday. So over the weekend, I read his book, and then I flew up to Seattle the night before and went to hear him speak in the morning, and then had ready kind of like what would be interesting for him to hear about. And we just started talking, and I told him a story. And then at the end of the story, I said, I would love to come work for you. And he actually, it's kind of embarrassing to think about now, but he said, what would you like to do? And I said, I don't know, something like assistant to the CEO. And he said, that would be really, and the term chief of staff didn't even exist back then. And it probably would have been too obnoxious to use. But he said, that would be kind of a boring job, but send me your resume, and we're hiring some MBAs for a couple of different things. And so I flew back, faxed in my resume, and a week later called and said, did he get it? And his assistant said, yeah, he wants to meet with you. So then I ended up going to work there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So if anyone in the audience, like Julie is hiring, so you can find her after this. Okay, let's fast forward to today and Daydream. What is Daydream?
Daydream, in essence, is a fashion agent. So we are making shopping and discovery in fashion better, easier. We're bringing together all the brands of the world in one place and helping you find the thing you're looking for.
And why is AI, like specifically AI search, so good for fashion?
It's funny because as everyone who's ever shopped for any clothing item online, if you're shopping in a store and you come and talk to someone, you can explain what you're looking for, what the occasion is, what the need is, what your constraints are. But online, you need to figure out the taxonomy of the site and use a very simple keyword or keywords to find it. And that's just not a subjective category like fashion. Really, that's not an effective way to find a match to a product. And so AI is such a beautiful thing in that you can use your natural language, you can share as much information about yourself as you want and about the needs that you have, and then we can translate that to a refined search and help you find the right product for you.
And I just want to double click on, you said subjective, like keyword. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Subjective keyword?
So as opposed to saying something is a red dress, which are factual, you can say, I'm looking for a dress to wear to a Valentine's Day party that's low cut, but not too low cut, that's, long sleeve, and that makes me feel great. And I like things that are a little boho and romantic, So there's just so many different things that people want to describe. And everyone has different words to use it. And so you don't have to worry about knowing the exact words. You can use natural language. And then the answer is not a, one-to-one. There's an exploration process. So if we show you products that we think are great results for it, you can then continue to have a conversation and say, that one's kind of like what I'm looking for, but I want it to be a little more this or that. And so the ability to use natural language combined with images to get to where you want is really the way online shopping should have been working, but we just hadn't gotten there yet.
Yeah. And how are people searching today for fashion?
It's really interesting because so my prior company, the Yes, was a fashion recommendation engine. So it was kind of a V1, a little bit different business model, but we were interested in having natural language search, but we noticed that people literally, like, even if you asked them, they couldn't think beyond what search has always been. And then since ChatGPT, obviously we're starting to now train consumers to search differently. And even over the last year of being in alpha and beta, we've seen people get much more exploratory with their searches. So like one that we laughed at last week was, and laughed at in a very loving way, was, I want a revenge dress for a wedding I'm attending in the sort of vibe of Saltburn. Literally, that was a search. And, it's fun to see people really, and I think the younger generation just intuitively knows how to, do these prompts that are a little more engaging. But I think, with as time passes, we're seeing more people understanding it.
Yeah. And so in order to get really good at understanding, like subjective terms, I know we spoke a lot about how you need to understand the user, the shopper, their intent. And then also you need to understand the supply that you have so that you can merchandise it in the best possible way to make matches happen.
Yep.
It's funny, it brought me back to Airbnb, where we were partnering with our hosts in trying to really understand exactly what kind of home and what kind of experience they're going to provide to their guests. Mm-hmm. And so there's many parallels here to what you're doing with brands, right? In order to, again, understand exactly what is good for a specific user.
Yep.
And I think you have something like 5,000 brands now on Daydream, and with many of them, like hundreds of them, you have really close partnerships with.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how did you manage to make that happen? That's very impressive.
Yeah. Well, I've been in this industry for 25 years, and so I absolutely love the fashion space. I love the brands and the retailers. I've been on their side. I've been a brand. I've been a retailer. And so, and my team also, the team that's working on the brand side also has been in the industry. And so I think to some degree, the industry knows us and they know that we care about them and we know what matters to them. And when we go and we pitch them, we're talking their language. So that's really important. And we all have track records on the team. And so they trust us. And, we help them understand why it's good for them and how it's going to help them. And so I think that those relationships are critical to being able to have these direct partnerships that allow us to build a really rich data set off of their catalogs.
And when you partner with brands close, like what do they talk about? Like what are the kinds of things you hear? Like what's important to them?
So in brands across many industries, every brand has put so much time, money, and love and effort into building their brand. So they want their brand to show up the way they think it should show up. It used to be all about adjacencies, like, in the stores, it used to be who am I next to, and online, it used to be who am I merchandise with. Now they understand that there's, each user sees a different set of brand combinations and products based on their interests and what they like. But I think they understand that they care about how their brand shows up. They care about learning as part of the process, and they care about sort of the ability to get new customers because that's really what they're after. And so I think that they're excited for what we're doing because AI is a big scary new world for them. They're not tech companies, and so they feel like we're a partner in them helping to learn about what these new ways of shopping are going to be like.
And how do they feel specifically about AI?
Everyone's intrigued. they're just not sure what to do with it. They're not sure yet how to use the tools to help them with their work. I would say if there's anywhere they're starting with kind of like imagery, and everyone's playing around with how can you do things instead of standard photography and copy, those kinds of things. But they're not yet sure how it is going to change their business, and they're not yet sure how they should be maximizing the use. So really early days, but they all feel like they should be learning and, engaging.
Yeah, and what are maybe kind of related, like what are some of the biggest challenges of building an AI company today?
I think there's a couple things. I think one is it's just changing so quickly. And so it's not like you can hire experts because everyone has to learn as they go. And I think that it's very hard to get the precision right. And so, if you go, there are a million, light layer apps that help you do anything on the web. So lots of shopping ideas too, but they're not deep, and they don't really work once you click past like the second screen. And so we all know you sort of have this one chance to get the trust of the consumer. And so I think to get it really right is, it's easy to do like the first 60%. It's very hard to do the last 40%.
And what you're saying is that it's easy to do a few of the searches like really well, but then there's a long tail, right, of many other kinds of searches that are like, how do you tackle that? Like, how do you, like, if you go a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I mean, the way we're tackling it is we are really understanding the entire universe of potential searches and kind of breaking them down into different problem sets, and then kind of tackling each one. And, at the end of the day, it's kind of like a group of different models that answer every question, and where we pull from, and whether we're using lexical, which is text from a product, or we're using vector, more the image from a product. We have to have sort of the ability to understand what the query is and what the right way to get the best answer is.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, one thing that we see quite a bit with many founders and many companies in the AI space today is it's really easy to lose trust if you don't serve like the needs of the customer. And maybe you get like the first 3 searches, you do a good job, but then you fall off on the 4th or the 5th, or you do something inaccurate, and then you suddenly lose trust, and then you lose the user altogether.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important to just go after the whole long tail.
Yeah.
So let's maybe zoom out of Daydream for a second, talk about the industry more at large. I mean, you have some predictive power on where shopping goes and where e-commerce evolves in general. Like, where do you think it's all going, like in the next 3 to 5 years?
It's funny because since I was at Nordstrom, so I started at Nordstrom.com in 1999, to date myself. And I remember even back then I was like, this just seems silly that we have to be. So I was always really interested in the sort of search and discovery side of things. I felt like owning inventory was a pain in the butt, having to get a sample photographed and copywritten and all of those things. It just wasn't. And but those were the things that we needed to do. I think this is sort of what's happened since, and I think AI is going to accelerate it, is there's kind of the who owns the product and is shipping it, and then who's the layer that's helping you discover it and explore it. And Google has kind of been the only place to go to kind of see everything in one place, but Google doesn't go deep in the vertical, and so it's really hard to get what you want unless the ad happens to pop up. And so I do think that that with AI and sort of this agentic capability that we're now going to have, it's going to transform where people start their behaviors, whether it's booking travel, whether it's shopping for fashion or shopping for a TV. I think that the players that become the starting point are going to be a new set of players than have been that before, and it will be just easier and less frustrating to find the thing you're looking for. Interestingly, I feel like in the early days of the web, it was all about getting product on the site, and was there enough selection? And then obviously in the last 20 years, it's kind of like complete overwhelm. I mean, and it's why ChatGPT can the fact that it can look through everything and find you and pull you out the information. And I just think that's the problem of this current moment, which is overwhelm, and that is what sort of agentic capabilities will help solve.
So this is super timely because I'm sure, as many of you know, OpenAI added shopping to ChatGPT. Like, what is the impact of that?
I was really excited. First of all, I want it. I'm sort of why are they not taking it one step further? And I also think they've just become, the new training ground for the how you think and where you go. So I think they'll help us by helping people think about going to this new destination to look for what you want. I think that they're going to try and do everything, and so they'll be a competitor to Google. I think there's still, Google did not remove the need for sort of vertically focused, capabilities. And so when I think about fashion specifically, it's such a nuanced category and requires a different set of, user interactions and data, understanding the product deeper, understanding the user, and understanding the context in a way that is unique to that vertical. And so I think there's still going to be a huge opportunity, but yeah, I'm excited.
And are people like today, are they well versed in being able to express preferences like in natural language? Because they're, keywords have been like a thing for a very long time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think ChatGPT is the training ground for the rest of us to help consumers learn how to interact with an agent.
Got it. And do you think in the future, like, is everyone going to have a shopping agent or what?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that we'll all have one agent that does everything for us, but I was sort of thinking it would be fun to have a meta agent that's like, go do this, and then that agent goes to the, So it'll be interesting to see how it works. It's hard to think there's one of anything for any, all purposes, but I do think that we will all, whether they're called agents and whether the consumers think of them as agents, I do think there will be agents that are doing the work for us.
Got it. Super cool. And we're almost out of time, but maybe a little bit of advice for the audience. Like maybe can you share, like, what are some of the, maybe like the hardest things about starting a company, being a founder?
I think building the right team is the hardest part. I've made some great hires and I've made some terrible hires and everything in between. But I do think that finding the right team who is equally committed and has not just the skill set you need, but also the curiosity to be able to continue to learn and the low ego and sort of understanding of, desire to do everything the best way that you can do it is, makes all the difference. And it's hard to get it right. It's hard to find those people sometimes, but it's worth the wait.
And when can you usually tell, like, if someone's going to work out or not, and if they're like the right fit? Is that case by case, or is there a pattern that you see?
I would say somewhere between. I actually have had a situation where I hired someone and her first month was a disaster. And we just had a really honest talk about it. And she totally turned it around. And she was wildly successful. Yeah. So I'm hesitant to judge too quickly. I think probably after about 3 months.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then what about building product specifically? When you think about building an interface, everything is changing around you, right? People, the way they shop, the way they behave is evolving. Like, how do you think about, like, what are some of the challenges, I guess, of building an interface for something that's evolving so quickly every day?
Well, I think that there is going to be a new interface, and I don't know what it's going to look like. And so part of the way we're approaching our sort of V1 product is by building an interface that's just a slight change to what people are used to. And I think in part because it is the easiest place to start and then learn and test off of, but in part because we need to build a bridge to what the future is going to look like. I think if you're doing too many new things at once, it's hard to make sense of it, like the brain is. And so, but I do think that the interfaces are going to change. And, we're starting to see some interesting things where we have this concept of playing with an image and text kind of in the same unit. And that's a new thing. I haven't seen that before. And so I think there's going to be a lot of changes. I think there's in the shopping world for fashion, I think virtual try-on will become kind of de facto. Everyone will have their own virtual model. I've been watching this space for 20 years. I mean, I remember literally in 2000 when Land's End did a virtual try-on, and it was pretty good, actually. So, now the harder part is getting it to scale. But I think that will become a standard. We don't know if people actually want that or not. Do they like it? Does it make them convert? Is it universal, or will some people want to see things on them and some people won't? So there's a lot still to test and learn, I think, on the new UI.
Cool, exciting. I mean, I love how nimble like your entire team is, and you are trying so many different things, not sticking to any one direction, because like everything is just evolving so quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're out of time. Thank you, Julie, so much. This has been a pleasure. Super excited to keep partnering with you, and excited for your launch soon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I should say we're launching in June, and it's daydream.ing. So if you want to sign up for the wait list, please do.
Check it out.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
you.